I'm Matt Volrath, a professor in the Business Administration program here at Ohio Wesleyan University, and it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome tonight Dr. Jay Martin. Introducing Coach Martin is a difficult task because his experience is very broad and varied, but I'll give you a brief synopsis, or I'll attempt to. Martin is the winningest coach in NCAA men's soccer history and the first men's soccer coach in any NCAA division to reach the 700 win mark. In 43 seasons, Martin's teams have compiled a 283, 29, and 22 record in conference play, a winning percentage of .880, won 26 conference crowns, and 2 national championships. Martin has been the NCAA Regional Coach of the Year 16 times in his 43 years at Ohio Wesleyan, and was named NSCAA National Coach of the Year in 91, 98, and 2011. In 2000, Martin received the Ohio Collegiate Soccer Association's Honor Award, only the 4th time that award was bestowed since the association's founding in 1948. He received the National Soccer Coaches Association of America's Honor Award in 2007 and was inducted into the United Soccer Coaches Hall of Fame in 2020. Beyond coaching, Martin has also served soccer with a term as president of the National Soccer Coaches Association of America, as well as a 6-year stint on the NCAA Division III Selection Committee, including 4 years as committee chair. He's been a color analyst of the Major League Soccer Columbus Crew for 9 seasons, and in addition, he took over as editor of the NSCAA's Soccer Journal in January 2003, becoming the publication's 3rd editor since its establishment. Martin is a professor in Ohio Wesleyan's Health and Human Kinetics department and served as the Battling Bishops athletic director from '85 through 2004. Prior to joining Ohio Wesleyan University faculty, Martin served as a 2-sport assistant at The Ohio State University, from which he received both MA and PhD degrees. Earlier, he was director of sport at the Munich, Germany YMCA, coaching soccer, volleyball, basketball, and lacrosse, and athletics director at the American International School at Dusseldorf. A native of Hingham, Massachusetts, Martin received his BA degree from Springfield College in 1971. He lettered in soccer and lacrosse, earning All-American laurels in the latter. In Germany, he also played soccer for the Kaiserwerth Club, played professional basketball, and served on the staff of the volleyball pavilion in the 1972 Olympics. Dr. Martin, thank you very much for making time to talk with us tonight. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
I hope so, Matt. Talk to me in an hour and see if you're still happy with what you hear. We'll see. And I would like to say thank you to all of you who are listening to this, either in real time or in later on. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. When Matt talked to me, I don't know, a long time ago, we talked about the relationship between business and sport, and we talked about some of the differences and similarities between, for example, Fortune 500 companies and successful successful coaches in sports. I've entitled this presentation, The Power of Inspiration, Perspiration, and Cooperation in Sports and Business. And what you're going to see as we go forward is that there's been an evolution in both management and business and coaching over the last 20 or 25 years. And the emphasis early on has been on inspiration and perspiration. The emphasis now is on cooperation, both with businesses and with teams. Inspiration is the job of the coach or the manager in a business firm. Perspiration happens with both. That's just flat out hard work. But cooperation and the necessity and need for cooperation it has become very, very much more important. So when I throw in some quotes here as we go through the PowerPoint. When a company begins to alter the way it views its people, dramatic results will happen. John McConnell, who is the late owner of Worthington Industries and the founder of the Columbus Blue Jackets, he actually established a business hall of fame in Columbus, and my wife was one of the initial members of that with her firm, Gooseberry Patch, a catalog company that she was in charge of. She was president of for a number of years. So why do Fortune 500 companies have successful coaches talk to them and pay thousands of dollars? Mike Krzyzewski gets 125. He's the head basketball coach at Duke. I'm sorry. He gets paid $125,000 for each speech that he makes to these companies. Lou Holtz is the same. Bill Belichick is the same. And why do they pay this amount of money? Now, I talk to a lot of companies. Also, I do not get paid $125,000, but I have a good time talking to these companies because business wants to know how successful teams are created and how they sustain excellence over time. Now, you're going to have to bear with me because on the right-hand side of my screen, it's blocking some of my PowerPoint, so I can't quite read the end, but we'll muddle through. Most businesses and organizations do not perform close to their peak potential. And my question is why? And that goes the same for teams. Why don't all teams and all coaches, why are they not successful? Even if they do perform close to their peak potential, most struggle to sustain a high level of performance over time. And again, my question is why? We're going to explore these questions starting in a few minutes. Business looks at sports teams to see how organizations can promote cooperation that will enhance high performance. And the organizations, the business organizations, want to know what are the secrets of Mike Krzyzewski and Bill Belichick and Greg Popovich down with the San Antonio Spurs and so on. How have they been able to achieve success at such a high level and for such a long period of time? And if you would bear with me, I've been able to achieve success for a long period of time. And I will say up front that it takes a lot of work. And I hope I can explain some of these things as we go forward. The evolution of business managers and the coaches are very similar. And what I want to emphasize here is that things have changed. Why do great things happen so seldom to so many large organizations, and why aren't teams successful? Most organizations and teams rely on outmoded management and coaching theories. Now, I'm not an expert in management theory, although I know a little bit about it. I am an expert in coaching theory. But as you'll see in a moment, management theory and early coaching theory were very, very similar. And the emphasis was on different things than it is on now. These theories developed in simpler times. I mean, when these theories developed in the 50s, 60s, and 70s for business, and the same for sports coaches, there was no technology. There weren't so many distractions. It was just a different time. So the theories reflected those times, and they were very, very simplistic. They assumed that all these theories assumed that the people, the players in athletics, and the employees in business were the weak link. And these people needed to be controlled, and they needed to be controlled with a lot of rules. I can simplify this by telling you that in both business and sports, these early theories were simply the my way or the highway theory. In business, the outcomes were more important than the people, and in sports, the outcomes were more important than the people. That has changed. The change was focused from the coach boss to the players, employees. Now, I'm sure some of you are familiar with leadership theories. And if you recall, the two initial leadership theories were the great man theory and the trait theory. And these theories focused solely on the leader. And when you read these theories and how they came about, there's no mention of the followers or the people in the business at all. It was all about the leader. As these theories evolved, the situation became important. The behavior of the leaders became important. All of these things started to change the focus from the leader to the employees. And that's where we're going today. Now, one of the main problems that we have, and I can speak with a lot of knowledge about soccer coaches because I give clinics and talks all over the country all year long about this, what I'm talking to you about. But what I'd like to share with you now is the move from the my way or the highway to today's mentality of what I call the modern coach. Now you can look at that and say traditional coach, and you could put in there traditional manager, because as you'll see, a business manager and a coach do a lot of the same things. So the traditional coach was focused on winning and the outcome. I'm talking about people like Woody Hayes, if any of you remember him, or Bo Schlembecker, and all of these older, Bear Bryant, and all of these older coaches that were focused 100% on winning an outcome. As a result, the coaches were very task-centered. The results dominated, or in business sense, the profit dominated at the expense of all. They were dependent, however, upon the players. But in order for them, the mentality was in order for them to be successful, they had to control the players. I don't know, when I was in college and high school, we had rules about everything, how long our hair could be, how long our socks could be, tucking in the shirts, all of these other things. These were means for the coaches to control the players. Coaches and managers have been control freaks because their jobs are dependent upon the success or the failure of the players. So the coaches and managers felt in those days that the more control they could have, the better off they would be, and the better their chances of success would be. We had a basketball coach here, Gene Mahaffey, won a national championship in 1988, and he, in every sense, was a traditional coach. I was athletic director at the time. He used to share with me every year. He had 3 pages of single-spaced typed rules for his team. And the rules were just nuts. I mean, they were unbelievable. And he felt that if he could control the players off the field or off the court, in that case, he could control the players on the court. The traditional coach was all about me. He or she, well, mostly he in those days. I'm talking about the 50s, 60s, and 70s with the traditional coaches. And as you know, women's sports didn't really take off until 1972 with Title IX. So the majority of the coaches I'm talking about now are males. He was a yeller and a screamer. He was a trainer, not a coach. And a trainer, by that I mean he walked out on the field, he put the teams through their paces and walked off the field. He wasn't necessarily interested at all in what the students did off, in our case, what the students did off the field, or in the business case, the manager wasn't interested in what his employees did when they weren't at the firm. Most of these coaches were ex-players, and I have nothing against ex-players. I'm an ex-player. As you heard from Matt, I played a lot of sports and did a lot of things. But what happens, and this happens today with coaches, and I'm sorry to suggest we have some coaches on this campus that are like this. Ex-players think they know it all, and ex-players use their coaches as role models. Ex-players don't work particularly hard in learning what's going on in the real world today. And so when I look at ex-players in this context as a traditional coach, I'm looking at this negatively. They were hard workers because, believe me, coaching is very, very hard. And they were, as I mentioned a moment ago, they were only interested in what happens on the field, and they had no interest in the players and the holistic approach to dealing with players. The modern coach, we are still focused on winning. Now, I get interviewed a lot for different publications and so on. When we won the 2011 national championship, I was interviewed by the NCAA magazine, and they asked me about my philosophy and a whole bunch of questions, and they posted it. They put it in the magazine, they posted it online. And I got a lot of emails and texts from my buddies in Division I, and they said something like, Jay, that's great stuff, but it would never work in Division I. Because there's a misconception or let me say misperception, that coaches in Division III aren't excited about winning. Let me tell you, I'm excited about winning. Winning is really important. What I'm going to share with you is how we can deal with the process of winning differently than in the old days. Mike Krzyzewski is a modern coach. Pete Carroll, the head coach of the Seattle Supersonics, I think they called in the NFL, is a modern coach. And believe me, both of those guys are focused on winning. Steve Kerr with the Golden State team, modern coach, really good coach, emphasized 3 NBA championships. That tells me he likes to win. The modern coach is player-centered or employee-centered. They're interested in excellence, not perfection. I should have added under the traditional coach. They always worked toward perfection. Perfection is not possible. You all know that. It's not possible in our lives. It's certainly not possible in sports, but excellence is. And what I mean by excellence is the perpetual grind to make yourself better every single day. To me, that's what excellent is. They're careful planners. They're mentors to their players. They're all about we. We don't have a lot of rules at the soccer field at Roy Reich. I can't call it the J. Martin complex. I can't do that at Roy Reich. But one of our rules is that we don't talk about me and I. I don't care about their high school experience. I don't care about their club experience. I care about their experience today. We are all about we. If I hear, and this happens with freshmen, if I hear freshmen talking to each other about what they did this and that and so on in high school, nope, don't want to hear it, not interested. The modern coach is a democratic, not an autocratic coach. The modern coach listens to the players and speaks. The modern coach sells ideas and doesn't yell ideas. The modern coach is a teacher first, and the modern coach is interested in both the field and the classroom. So you can see there's a big difference between the original traditional coaches and the modern coach. So my 10 key qualities for today's manager or coach are a suitable character. Character is very important. Intellectually and emotionally sound, experienced and qualified. In other words, I don't believe you have to be an ex-player, and certainly I don't believe you have to be a good ex-player to be a good coach. In fact, I think good ex-players are not very good coaches, and maybe we can get to that later. Good, the qualities of the manager and coach today: good communicator, the ability to plan, prepare, and organize, the ability to create a network of support, the ability to develop positive relationships, and a builder of teams. And today's coach and manager has a potential for leadership. Now, I put potential in there on purpose because potential means that you're not very good at it now, but you have a chance to be good in the future. And not all coaches or managers take the opportunity in their position of leadership to be good leaders. We'll get to that. The creation and sustaining of teams. Build a company for people and by people, and you will have a company that reaps rewards beyond your wildest dreams. Daniel Coyle. And we will end this presentation with Daniel Coyle in a little while. So there are two parts of putting a team together. The first is team dynamics. That's putting a team together. In sports, we call that the preseason. In management, we call that orientation. And the more that you do as a coach and a manager in preseason and orientation, the better off you're going to be in the future. There are 4 phases or stages to putting a team together. There's the forming stage, which is preseason and orientation. Everybody's happy, everybody's excited. There are no problems in the forming stage. One of my concerns, criticisms is too strong of a word, with today's coaches, a majority of the teams at Ohio Wesleyan during their preseason do team building things. Well, I don't believe you need team building in the forming stage because everybody's happy. There are no problems. Why do team building activities? You need team building when you lose 5 games in a row in October or in February. That's when you have to reset, reboot the team. The storming stage then is after forming, and everybody is jockeying for positions, both in a business firm and on a team. All of a sudden, there's competition for playing time, there's competition for positions. And so we have this tension that develops on the team, a lot of tension. And let me reiterate, the more that you do as a coach in the forming stage, the better chance that you have to get through the storming phase. Now, I believe, and research supports my thought, that very few organizations ever get through this phase. Business, teams, and so on. We've been very successful, the soccer program at Ohio Wesleyan, but as I look at my 43 teams, and I don't know this exactly, I'm just guessing, but my guess is that as few as 16, 17, or 18 got through the storming phase. We were successful because we had good players, but we didn't reach our potential because we never got through the storming phase. And that's what the storming phase is all about. I also contend that business, the storming phase is almost perpetual because you're bringing people in all the time during the year. We bring people in preseason and we get it over with for the year. Business has to deal with this the entire year. Every time a new person comes in to a firm or an organization, there's storming, there are jealousies, there's tension, there's a problem that the manager has to deal with. Once we get through the storming phase, there's the norming phase where players come together, they accept their roles, they know what their roles are going to be. We'll talk about roles in a few moments. And then there's the performing stage. Team dynamics is all about getting a team to the performing phase, which is simply playing at your highest level. If a team is only good enough to be a 500 team, then they have to be a 500 team. If a team is good enough to win a national championship, then they should compete for the national championship. Now, I say compete because, trust me, winning a national championship is very, very hard. Those of you who are around, you Buckeyes, just ask Thad Matter about that, right? It's really, really hard. So team dynamics is putting a team together. Team cohesion is keeping the team together and playing at a high level for the entire season, or for business, the entire fiscal year. So there are two parts here. Many coaches that I know don't understand this, and many managers don't understand this. They either don't understand how to build a team and put it together, but most don't understand how to keep a team together at a high level. There are roles that have to be discerned, informal and formal. There's a captain, but is the captain the team leader? There are norms. There's behavior that's dictated by the upperclassmen. We just talked about the hierarchy of high school and college sports in this country, where the juniors and the seniors set examples for the new guys, and they develop the norms. This is part of the team culture. There's social support, which is teammate interaction. There are 7 different types of social support. All of them are very, very important. Some of them are very, very difficult. For example, when you have to tell a teammate's complaining to you about the coach or lack of playing time or whatever it is. And if you are really going to support that teammate, you have to tell your teammate the truth. That, in fact, Joe, you're not playing very well. That's why you're not getting playing time. Very, very difficult, but very, very important. One of my basic theories, in fact, it's probably more than a theory. I know this is important. One of my theories is that successful people and successful organizations do the little things. Everybody can do the big things, but can you do the little things? I mean, those of you, for example, let me use basketball because more of you know about basketball than soccer. Everybody, any coach can come up with an inbounds play or a press, how to break a press. That's easy. In fact, go on Google and put in how to break a press. There'll be a million hits in 8 seconds. But how many coaches and leaders and managers can get their players to do the little things? An example, if I see a player up at Roy Reich who walks past a piece of trash on the ground and he doesn't pick it up, he and I have a problem. Because what he's saying to me and his teammates is, I don't have to pick that up. Do you know who I am? I'm so good, I don't have to pick this up. Jay, why don't you pick it up? Teammate, why don't you pick it up? One thing you have to understand is that that person is not going to change as a person when he goes on the soccer field. He is the same person. So if he doesn't do the little things off the field, believe me, he's not going to do the little things on the field that will lead to a successful team. He's not going to run back 40 yards to defend. He's going to say, Jay, why don't you do that? Or teammate, why don't you do that? So the little things are really important. Successful managers, successful coaches focus on the little things. Mike Krzyzewski, for example, he and I have had some contact. He will tell you, and I agree, that X's and O's in his top 10 priority list are about 7 or 8. Anybody can do X's and O's, but not everybody can do the little things. And team cohesion, make sure that each player knows his or her role and how important they are to the team. This is really, really important. And as the dog days go along in your season and you're halfway through the season and Joe hasn't played a lot, it's important that Joe knows his role on the team and how important he is on the team, even though he's not getting the playing time that he wants. To use Krzyzewski as an example, again, he's the basketball coach at Duke. I believe he's won 3 national championships, but he's got a great program. The first 20 minutes of every practice at Duke, Mike Krzyzewski works with the second team, not the first team. His assistants work with the first team. What's the message? You know what it is. Hey, you guys are important. Without you, we're not going to reach our goals. So it's important that you understand that, you accept it, and you be the best that you possibly can. And he does that every single practice. Team cohesion. So now let me get into, I guess this is supposed to be about my philosophy of management and coaching and how some of you business majors can take some of this and go forward. So I'm going to do the best I can here. My philosophy is, first of all, a philosophy guides the organization and the team in managing the day-to-day aspects of the group. A philosophy. A philosophy helps me make decisions, and it helps me create practice plans. It helps me create a vision for the team based on the talent and so on and so forth. So my philosophy is as follows. And when I say this to coaching clinics, and I talk to coaching clinics a lot, when I say this, coaches actually get upset with me, really upset. I gave a presentation at the Ohio High School Soccer Convention 2 summers ago. And when I tell you what I told them, they actually booed me. And I was like, I felt like Mitt Romney for a few minutes. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But I don't believe coaches develop players. In fact, I know coaches don't develop players because only players can develop players. And why are coaches upset about this? Because every high school coach who sends a kid to a Division I school wants to take credit for it. Hey, I sent that kid to whatever, Alabama or Ohio State, whatever. And every college coach who sends a kid to the pros wants to take credit for that. Sorry, coaches, no credit. You had nothing to do with it. What then is the coach's job? A good coach and manager creates an environment in which players can get better. That's the coaching. And they want to get better. That's the motivation that the player brings. But I don't have a magic wand. We've had over 30 guys from Ohio Wesleyan since I've been here who have played professionally. We have 3 who are playing professionally right now. I had nothing to do with it. Nothing. to do with it. They brought their motivation and they worked hard every day and they thrived in the environment that we have at Ohio Wesleyan, and they were successful. So the environment at Ohio Wesleyan is motivating, it's challenging, and it's fun. We all do our best work when we're having fun, which is an oxymoron. I understand that. But we all do our best work when we're having fun. The players on our team went back to their second soccer practice because they had fun at the first. If it ceases to be fun, it becomes work, and they might as well stop playing. Fun is absolutely critical. Everything we do at Roy Reich is about fun. And how do we do that? We do that by having competition. Everything we do in practice is competition because our guys like to compete. And at the end of the day, we keep scoring everything. At the end of the day, there's a winning team and a losing team. The winning team gets their picture taken by my assistant because I can't do that, and he puts it on social media. The losing team, picks up the gear, does the laundry, cleans the locker room, whatever, and we do it again tomorrow. We want our guys looking forward to practice all day long. And when they leave, we want a smile on their face. And all that means is that we have to, and we'll talk about practice in a moment, all that means is that the coaching staff has to do their due diligence in practice and make practice challenging and fun. And the second thing that happens here that's really important, as you'll see as I go through my philosophy, is the players are now starting to understand that they have responsibility for getting better, not the coach. The problem we have in this country is that we're a coach-centric sporting society. If you were to go watch any team anywhere in this country, as they come out to get ready for practice, they're all standing around and talking to each other, waiting for the coach to come out and tell them what to do. You don't get better doing that. Absolutely not. You get better by going out early and working on your game or doing something. And again, we'll talk about that in just a second. So the responsibility at the Ohio Wesleyan soccer program is passed on from me, the coach, to the players. The sooner the players accept and understand that they're responsible for getting better, the better they're going to be. If they don't accept that, they're never going to get any better. And this is, I have no research on that, but I have 43 years of anecdotes about that. Philosophy part 2. I'm all about empowerment. I empower the players. I don't know if you can see me, but we're not like the coach is here and the players are here. No, we're here. We do this together. And as I tell the players, I have tenure. So, I'm not going anywhere. It's their problem. It's their team. We have a leadership council, the captains and a member of each class. We ask for player input every single day. At the end of practice, it's not unusual for me to come up to a player and say, hey, Joe, that second activity we did in practice, here's what we were trying to accomplish. How'd we do? And he might say, Jay, and by the way, my players call me Jay, not coach. I hate to be called coach. It's a long story. You don't care about it. But I always tell people that my name is Jay. Do you go into the bank and say, good morning, banker? I don't think so. Why are we talking coach, coach, coach? Anyway, the player's input is important. So he might say to me, Jay, that activity was the dumbest thing I've ever done in soccer, which is fine. I need that input. I need that feedback. I have two choices. I get rid of it or I change it. That's all. It's not that hard. But our players are empowered. They decide about our uniforms. They decide what tournaments we want to play in. They decide who we want to play out of conference. It's their team. And for 4 years, they know that. And I make that perfectly clear from day one. So this is a player-owned program. I want to establish an emotional relationship between the players and the program. And I want them to understand, here's my definition of a team. A team practices from 4 to 6. A program takes care of the other 22 hours in the day. And so the players own the program, and I want them to be emotionally attached. And I just received today a printout from that Battling Bishops fundraiser we did 10 days ago, or whatever it is. And we had over 100 former players who made some kind of donation. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And that tells you the emotional impact that the players have. I'm going to give you one more example. And please, this example is not about me. This example is about the program. When I was inducted into the National Soccer Coaches Hall of Fame in January of 2020, it was in Baltimore, Maryland. It was in the middle of January. 85 former players came into Baltimore and helped me celebrate that induction. They came from the West Coast, San Francisco, LA, Houston, Denver, Chicago, Atlanta. They drove in from all points east. And that's an example. It's not about me. It's an example of what this program means to these guys and the emotional attachment that they have after playing 4 years here. We're all about humility. Humility is very important to me, and it's very important to the players. We do free soccer clinics all year long. We go to Germany every 3 years. And the first thing we do in Germany, we go to a place called Baumholder. Baumholder has the largest US Army base outside of the United States. The first day there, we give a free soccer clinic to all the kids of the soldiers who are in Afghanistan and all these other places. We give back. Relationships, I'm into relationships. If I had to define my philosophy, it would be empowerment and relationships. When you build relationships, you build trust and credibility. I think trust and credibility are two of the most important aspects of coaching. If your players trust you, they're going to do what you say. And if you have credibility, then they're going to do what you say enthusiastically. And I suppose I have credibility because of all the wins and all those things. But I want to tell you that losing trust and losing credibility is really, really easy. Say one stupid thing as a coach and you lose trust. You have to be very, very careful. Another part of my philosophy is catch them doing something good. I talk to every player every day, and my job is to catch them doing something good every single practice and every single game. And I think that's really, really important. Young coaches, I hate to say that because that means I'm an old coach, but young coaches, it's easy to see a practice and pick out mistakes. It's really easy. I know nothing about American football, but when I watch a football game, which I don't do very often, it's easy for me to look at mistakes. But it's not easy for me to look at the good things that the players are doing. Good coaches, good managers, good leaders find the good things that their players and employees do. They find the good things. And as I said, I talk to each player every single day during practice. And most of the time, I'm not talking about soccer. Hey, Joe, how was that econ test you had yesterday? Blah, 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 and so on and so forth. I want them to understand that I really care about them as people. Or as I like to say, tongue in cheek, at least I pretend to care about them as people, and they don't know any better, all right? So the first thing we do every single preseason is we set our values and our goals. The seniors are assigned a small group of upperclassmen. They take their group out to the bleachers at Roy Reich. I give the seniors a list of 400 different values, and they have to come back. Each group has to come back with 20. We collate the values on the board, and then they go out with the new list, and they have to come back with 5. And then we collate and we decide, not me, the players decide. And I think that's really important. I do not set the values and I do not set the goals for the team. So that the seniors and the players decide what our values are going to be and our goals are going to be for that season. The process is the same for goal setting. We do values first, and then we do goals. So, halfway through the season, I can say, hey, guys, one of your goals was to win the conference championship. We're playing a conference team tomorrow. Practice today is just awful. If you don't change, we're going to lose. This is your value. It's not my value. Very, very important, because this enhances or increases the chances of buy-in. If I walk out in front of the team and say, okay, guys, here are our goals, or they tell me what their goals are, do you see the difference? It's a big difference. And now they buy in. So what do we do with this mess? Here's an example. This is our values and goals from 2012. And the character goals down below are our values. These are the 6 values that the team came up with in 2012 in preseason. Now, I think family is overused in sports, but they like it, so we put it in. I don't care. It's their value system. Then we have off-field goals, GPA, 48-hour rules about drinking, 0 arrests. I always think that's a really good goal off-field. And I give this presentation to businesses, and all the business guys chuckle about no arrests. And I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I think that's a good goal for you. Don't laugh about that. I think it's a great goal. And then we have our competitive goals, which talk about, win every NCAC game, fewer than 10 goals against, more than 50 goals for, and so on and so forth. This we hang up in the locker room. As you can see, those lines on the side, each player and coach signs it, and we put it up. And there's a door between our team room and our locker room. We put it on that door so that as they go into the locker room, they see it. Do they read it every day? Of course not. Of course not. But it's there. And subtly, over a period of time, they get to understand what their goals are, not my goals. I have goals for my coaching and so on and so forth. They have goals for themselves and the team. We also do individual goal setting. 1976, I had finished everything on my PhD, except I needed 2 credits. I went to the business school of Ohio State, and I took a class called Management by Objectives, which was new in business and motivating people. It was a one-on-one process. As I sat there, I said to myself, I can take this and I can make this work for sports. And I changed it to motivation by objectives, self-evaluation, statement of goals, written agreement between the player and I, interview with the coach, performance appraisal, and then we do it again. We do individual goals 3 times a year. And the number one strategy to enhance, create, improve, whatever the verb is, intrinsic motivation is goal setting. And so these guys learn how to set goals for themselves and set goals for the team. Goal setting helps the players identify strengths. Now look, here's another one of my philosophies. You can hit the delete button if you'd like. I believe that we in the United States spend too much time, energy, and effort trying to change our weaknesses to strengths, because we're not going to do that. We're never going to make a weakness a strength. I look at 3 columns: strengths, the middle column is manageable, and the other column is weakness. If you can move a weakness to manageable, then that's really good. But you're not going to move it to strengths. So we emphasize with our guys that they have to play to their strengths. Elite athletes know what they can do, and they do it over and over and over. And they don't try to do something they can't do. My example is always this. You basketball people out there, Michael Jordan had a skill set that was out of this world, a skill set greater than most basketball players ever. Larry Bird, I'm a Boston Celtics fan. Larry Bird didn't have the same skill set, did he? But he's considered one of the best ever because he knew what he could do, and that's all he did. It was easy. He knew what he could do, and he did it over and over and over and was successful. He didn't try to slam dunk like Michael. Larry Bird was a slow white guy. He couldn't jump, so he didn't slam dunk. That wasn't part of his game. And if I can get my athletes to think about that, to do what they can do during a game and don't try something new during a game, they will be better players. Because if they try something new, they're not going to be successful. And then it affects their confidence, motivation, and everything. So look, I'm supposed to give you guys time for questions. So, and I guess, I mean, I could give this to Matt, this PowerPoint, or any of you who want this PowerPoint, just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you, believe me. But practice is, I'll just say this about practice. It's the most important thing I do in terms of soccer. You don't get better in games. You get better in practice. And games show you where you are, and you go back to practice to make it better. And so I think that's an important thing for people to understand. Our guys have to practice as hard in practice as they do in a game. And again, our coaching society, our sports society in this country doesn't understand that. Everybody thinks the games are more important. Nothing is farther from the truth. We keep practice short. We're usually around 70 minutes. These 2-hour practices, 2.5-hour practices, we don't do. Look, the guys can't concentrate for that long. And guess what? Either can I. So 70 or 80 minutes is about as long as we can go. Everything's set up. We go from activity to activity. Boom, 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 boom. Off we go. Practice is where you get out of your comfort zone, into your learning zone, where you make mistakes and you learn and you get better. And by the way, coaches of 500 companies don't ask coaches who are 500 to share their ideas. I suspect that if my record wasn't what it is, Matt would never even ask me to do this. And that's how it is with all coaches. So look, I want to emphasize that winning is important. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll give you the ballpark. Since I've been here, we've won like 720 something games. So look, winning is important to me, but it's how you go about winning that is different at Ohio Wesleyan men's soccer than other places. We're 100% about the process. We focus on the process, not the outcome, which is really, really hard, isn't it? Because our society is an outcome-oriented society. Profit, winning, making money, whatever it is. And all those things are fine, but it's how you do it that I think is really, really important. And we do things differently at Ohio Wesleyan Soccer. I've tried to share some of that stuff with you. Now, I have 3 or 4 examples here that I've attached from other sources about the relationship between sports and business. And apparently I don't have time. It's already 7:48. So Matt, I don't know what you want to do. Is anybody asking questions, or have I bored everybody silly?
Let's do this, Jay. Can you talk for like 2 more minutes? And in the meantime, if anybody has questions, go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll get to those once Jay wraps up.
Okay, let me share with you my summary of the Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Many of you probably know his first book, which was called the what code? What I'm talking? The Talent Code, which was really, really good. The Culture Code examines the dynamics of groups, large, small, formal, informal, and he tried to understand how these great teams work and what they did to improve. He had athletic teams, the Patriots, the San Antonio Spurs, the Golden State Warriors. He had businesses, and he tried to find common denominators. So when I was thinking about what I was going to share with you, I've read the Culture Code twice. I don't read a lot of books twice. I read a lot of books, but the Culture Code is really, really good, and I would recommend it. I understand fully that college age people don't read books, but you could probably go online and get a summary of the Culture Code. The first thing he said is the lesson number 1 from these great teams and organizations was they form a safe environment so that everybody is comfortable and they can let their guard down and they can cooperate. They're not always looking over their shoulder. It's an environment where people feel safe and acting as they would in normal circumstances. They're able to speak their mind in a conducive situation. And I'm sorry, speak their mind is very conducive to enhancing cooperation, where difference of opinion doesn't matter. We can go forward. And as you all know, I was telling my wife this evening, there's just no room for difference of opinion in this country anymore. The second thing is share your own shortcomings to show your vulnerability, to show people that it's okay to make mistakes. This is called, by Coyle, the vulnerability loop, in which people show their vulnerability and then other people will show their vulnerability also. And as a result of that, both of the people involved become closer and trust each other and can cooperate and can move forward. When I do a lousy job of coaching, I apologize to the team after the game. When my team isn't ready to play, it's my fault. And if we go out and we lose a game because I didn't do my job, they are going to hear about it. And that's very, very important. And that makes them talk to me about their vulnerabilities, which I like that word better than weaknesses. And finally, build a sense of purpose through sharing a goal and the simple ways to achieve that goal. In the case of our team, it's a sum of all beliefs and values for a team as they are related to common goals. That's why goal setting, in my opinion, is so, so very important. And goal setting by employees and players is far more important than goal setting for by the coach or the manager. Matt, you there?
Sure enough, I'm still here. Are you concluding?
I'm sorry?
Are you stopping there?
Stopping. Are there any questions?
Okay. Yeah, we definitely have questions, and I'm sure there's more. Thank you. That was tremendous, and I'm sure you could have gone for much longer. I'm sorry that we had to confine this to an hour-long window. I'm sure we're missing out.
Well, I was worried about covering 45 minutes this afternoon, but once I get talking, Matt, you know how professors are. We can talk about anything for an hour, and if we know something about it, we can talk for 2 hours. So that's just how it is.
Well, this is great. I wish we had much longer than we do. So we do have some questions coming in, and if anyone has a question, please put it in the chat. Ethan asked, was traveling to Munich early in your career good exposure for the type of coach that you wanted to become?
I'm sorry, Matt, one more time.
The question was traveling to Munich early in your career good exposure for the type of coach that you wanted to become?
I've been very lucky. I've been exposed to a number of coaches. I went to Springfield College, which is a jock school. It's all about coaches and teaching physical education. I've been exposed to all kinds of coaches. I could hit the delete button on some of them and say, hey, that guy's got it. He understands what's going on. But to see the perspective in Europe of coaching was eye-opening for me because it's totally different than the United States. The United States is the only country, and Canada, which is part of the United States, is the only country in the world where sports and academics are associated with each other. It's not so in Europe. And so it gave me a new perspective. And yes, I've brought that as part of my coaching philosophy, no question about it.
Another question, Barbara asks, how much of your coaching philosophy carries over into the teaching of your classes?
I hope a lot. And as I said in one of the slides, I look at myself as a teacher first, as a teacher who happens to coach. And so at 4 o'clock in the fall, I go out on the field and I teach. And I think and I hope the students in my classes would say the same thing. I want input. I want feedback. I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what I do. One of the questions I ask on the last day of class is, what did you like and what didn't you like? And why didn't you like it? And then I can change that going forward.
I'm going to inject one of my questions here. You talked about the process that teams go through as they're forming, And you mentioned that from your perspective, a lot of your teams have been stuck in that storming stage. Uh, what what do you think what do you think you can do to move a team or a business unit out of the storming stage and into the norming stage? How can you encourage that to happen?
It's hard as hell. Um, it's very difficult. We recruit guys who are good players and who have strong personalities. And as a result of that, there's always conflict. But, even those teams, Matt, that didn't get through storming, we were successful. Maybe we were 16-4 or something. But my definition, but we never played at the level we should have played. And that's my definition of success. But an example, in 1998, we won our first national championship. At the end of the regular season, we were 13-6, and 6 is the highest number of losses on any of my teams in 44 years. In fact, the last game we lost at Bethany 3-0. And I have no idea even how we got into the national tournament. But once we got into the national tournament, the team got through storming and we won the national tournament. We didn't give up a goal. We scored first. We won the damn thing. I don't know how, but we did. And I think what we try to do is stay the course. We have our philosophy. We do things that we know are good and right, and we just stay with it. And if the team doesn't develop or evolve through the storming stage, then there's not much we can do about it. But as I said, we've been successful because we have good players.
Okay, we have a question from Maura. She says, you mentioned that you give your seniors a list of 400 values that then get narrowed down. How much time, hours, days, does the process take to arrive at the top goals that the team ends up choosing? And did you make the list of those 400 values yourself?
No. Google it. 400 values. It's very, very simple. Then you can just print it out. Each time the team goes out in their groups, they're limited to 20 minutes. Because I've learned in the past that if it's longer than that, what happens is they just sit around and they don't do what they're supposed to do. But if I put a timestamp on it, you have 20 minutes to come up with 10 values, then they have to hustle and they have to work. And so 20 minutes for values, 20 minutes for the second value meeting, 20 minutes for off-field goals, 20 minutes for on-field goals. And look, I mean, oftentimes they're very similar to last year's goals because it's the same program. It's the same players except for the freshmen. But every year, thank goodness, we have different values and we have different goals.
Sarah asks, Jay, do you have any great stories of how a unique goal has specifically helped a player or a team?
Oh, Sarah, I have like 700, and we don't have obviously that much time. But one goal quickly, a young man named Matt Dodrell from Dublin, really, really good soccer player. All state, all this, all that, really good player. When he came here, however, he was great in practice, one of the best practice players we've ever had. But when we put him in a game, he couldn't deal with his anxiety in the game. So he and I sat down as a freshman and we revised his goals more internally. And we had revised his goals for him to work on his mental toughness, part of which was how to deal with anxiety. I mean, look, we all have anxiety. All players have anxiety. And he had to accept it. Most of us don't accept it. Most of us spend too much time trying to get rid of it. We can't get rid of it. Are you kidding me? I was anxious before this call tonight. I mean, because it's important to me. Anything that's important to you, you're going to have anxiety. So he went through his sophomore year. He got a little better, not a lot better. Went to his junior year, got a little better, not a lot better, but we kept setting goals about how to deal with his anxiety. His senior year, finally, Sarah, it broke. And all the work that he did on his goal of dealing with anxiety came to fruition. He was a starter, first team all conference, second team all Ohio, and he made all region. He went from not even playing to being all conference. And that was 100% up to Matt. Matt did it, not me. It just took him a while. Hopefully it doesn't take that long for everybody, but it took Matt for a while. And by the way, Sarah, he sent $1,000 to the program last week. So I hope he remembers that.
Natalie asks, do you have any recommendations for how to handle non-performers or those that don't pick up the trash in the workplace? Did they get cut or coached up?
I think they have to, in the workplace, I mean, I'm not sure of this. You're the expert in business, Matt. I have a little more power, I think, as a coach than a manager in a workplace. So Matt doesn't pick up the trash. He doesn't start tomorrow night. It's very simple, very simple. So he gets the idea, okay, I've got to do the little things or I'm not going to play. So I handle the playing time, which is one of the most important things for all players. In the workplace, I think it's a little bit more difficult. And that's why I said that I think many business organizations are in a state of storming much longer than sporting. I mean, the advantage of sports is we have a season. It's well-defined. It starts, it's over. Our business doesn't have a season. They have a fiscal year, I get that, but they have new people coming in all the time, and that can disrupt the cooperation in the group. So I think we use the leadership council, and maybe the business people can have a leadership council. And when a guy's not doing the little things, he's got to answer to the leadership council. And when you answer to your peers, I have found over the years, it's much more powerful than answering to the coach or the manager. Much more powerful. I mean, it's, you know, I tell my seniors all the time how powerful their actions are for the freshmen. They don't get it, and they probably won't get it for 20 years. But it's so powerful. So we use the leadership council. We call somebody in. We call Matt in. They sit down. I'm not even in the room, and the leadership council takes care of it. So I mean, maybe that'll work with a business or organization. I don't know. I'm not a good businessman. I got to tell you that. I run camps every year, and I don't think I've made a profit in 40 years. But that's I let too many kids come free. I'm just not a good businessman.
Jay, so the next question kind of ties in with what you were just explaining. But our provost, Carlin, she asks, Jay, you said that players motivate players. Can you say more about how that works?
Yes, I think, and again, if you look at the hierarchy of college sports, the juniors and seniors have been through all of this, obviously, for 2 and/or 3 years. They have understood. We have a notebook that each guy gets where we have a section on positive self-talk, motivation, concentration and focus, goal setting, and all of these other things. The juniors and seniors have been through it, and they understand the process of motivation and what motivation is. And as a result of that, I call upon them to help with the freshmen and sophomores. And again, Carlin, their intervention with the freshmen and sophomores is far more powerful than mine. Maybe when I was younger, that bothered me. It doesn't bother me now. It's a reality. That's how it is. So if a freshman's having a difficult day or had a difficult game last night, and a senior puts his arm around him and says, hey, Joe, that's okay. Let's move on. We have a phrase up there we call the next play, the next game, the next practice. Let's move on. That is really, really powerful. And after a period of time, it starts to, I think it starts to set in to freshmen and sophomores. I mean, you know, the best thing that happens to freshmen is they become sophomores. That's how it is. So freshman year is brutal. And once they become sophomores, they start to get it. They're not there totally, but they start to get it.
Great. Does anybody else have one last question they want to squeeze in? Right. Jay, there's been a steady stream of praise and comments coming in. I haven't read all of them, but I'll make sure that you see the transcript in the chat later. But it's fair to say that the audience has really enjoyed this talk. I know I have, and I'm sure students who watch this later are going to benefit from it in lots of ways. So thank you so much. This was fantastic, and we appreciate you making the time.
Let me just end with this. Students, I understand that I'm the last presenter, which is good news for you. I don't care whether you like this or not. I hope you liked it. But the good news is this semester is almost over, right? And we're all waiting for this semester to be over. So I hope in some way you learned something. I hope you learned something. Thank you very much for listening.
We definitely learned something. Thank you.